Okay, we're going to call to order the regular city council meeting of July 22nd, 2024. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Bixson.
Here.
Salvia. Here. Hauser.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
King. Sage.
Here.
Trent.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will go to public comment, scheduled, non-scheduled. First, we have an update from Frank Rewall and Sons on their plans for Lions Park investment. Mr. Rewall, welcome.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Good.
I have a little flash drive here to plug in below.
Uh-oh. Same spot. It's occupied.
Yeah, no, I
Fight.
like it. This is what I was hoping for.
You made it.
It's perfect. You just nodded, Leanne. Yep. She'll update the minutes right here.
Mr. Mayor, while Sean's doing that, the reason they're here tonight is really for one reason officially, and Attorney Crott sent out something that in order to do this the way the Rewalls are looking to do the funding, there was a special project requirement for public purpose on the condos. It was to put $14,000 into Elizabeth Park. We haven't done anything there. I know Mr. Rewall's been over the years like, are you going to do something, or is there a better way to spend the money? So what he's asking for tonight is to shift that commitment to Elizabeth, from Elizabeth Park to the Lions Park. So really, that's what we're asking about. What Sean's going to show you, et cetera, this doesn't even have to go to the Planning Commission. It's just, it's an update on that. And we had talked about some of the, exactly what he's going to show you. so you can visually see a little bit more than we could talk about last week, what they're going to propose to do there. So again, we would look for a motion at the end if that is the willingness of council to shift that commitment from Elizabeth Park to Lions Park.
Yeah, thanks for the tee up, Nick. That is exactly what we're here to talk about tonight. We built the condos in 2018, and we put $15,000 with the city that was supposed to be allocated to Elizabeth Park. We don't think anything's been done with that cash to date. We also have plans that we've talked to y'all before about that FRS #2 office next to our existing office. We'd like to go ahead and do an early donation to the city of the 15 for that as well to help fund this. Most Sherry's have offered $10,000 as well. FRS is willing to cover the difference, delta in the cost. We think, you know, right now, judging by those pictures, that this is a bit of an underutilized area. It's overgrown. It doesn't get used a lot. We think putting this half pavilion pergola there will bring a lot more life to this area. You know, you can see right down 4th Street. We got Mike Plez here with the Mills. He's got a lot of cool ideas too to kind of use that as a second city square down there, right down 4th to the heart of the city. I don't know if anyone has questions or, you know, what you want to talk about, but we'll just clear this. We're not planning on cutting any trees. So this is a view from the side. This is kind of not an exact, but what we're proposing, we think we'd only cover half of the circle, which you can see from here. Basically half the circle's covered by overgrown vegetation to date. So we trim these back, not cut any trees, and do that half pergola in this area here. Concerts, live music, shows, etc.
Questions? Councilmember Trent.
I like this. I've always felt like it was underutilized and needed some type of pavilion and shelter for people to, you know, perform or to read, you know, story time that the library does. And I'm very excited to see it. I like the openness, and I like the fact that it's affordable. You know, I think some type of people, they just get carried away and they say, oh, it's got to be $250,000, $500,000, and you're like, no, it can be built for a reasonable amount of money, and it'll look very professional, and it'll be used, and that's the best part, that the people can use it.
Yeah, it's underutilized now, and it's really a cool area with the river right there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the creek.
I've jogged by it for years. I had to start going positive, like, okay, don't get upset when you jog by there. So pretty soon I won't.
Councilmember Jones.
So I just want to add a couple things. One, so the public library is using it now a little bit for story time, which is, I think, what we're witnessing right there. And they had to take their own portable electricity with them, basically. So that's another piece of this.
Yes.
If you want to just explain how it's going to connect.
Yeah, we plan on pulling electricity from the bridge. There's power there already. You know, nothing crazy, but enough for speakers, a little bit of lights, microphone. That way it's there, it's permanent. So that's our plan with that.
And then the city, I think that it's leased for no charge to the DDA, so we probably need to clarify that. And that it would continue to be, the trash cans and such would be, continued to be maintained by the city. Correct? Okay.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm obviously going to support this, the swap of the funding. I just have a question for administration. So this project the special project where these funds were allocated was, 6 years ago? So what's the normal cadence, first question, to where we actually receive the benefit? And the second is, how many others projects are out there where we have funding that hasn't been spent?
So the only other one that's out there, the only other one that's out there presently is FRS 2, which isn't ongoing at this point. So Mosheri, that's been extinguished. They haven't built it, so it's out there that they were going to give to the project, but they have not pulled a building permit. So the trigger is the building permit, so, and the condos, we had the agreement to use the dollars when they got a C of O, but we didn't have the plan ready to go. Overlook had a public give, and Milltown had a public give. Neither of them ever pulled permits. Their site plans are extinguished, so they're the only ones left, so presently. So Joey LaChurco on 251 and on River.
210?
210, yeah, 210, not 251, 210, and then, Jeremy, what's the one at the bottom of the preserves? Thank you. In the preserves, those both have public give also, but he hasn't started yet. So normally it's when you get started or before you get a C of O, then you would have to fulfill your obligation.
What about Randazzo?
Randazzo you're right, there's another one. So he hasn't started yet. So his was to work under the bridge at the Watertown also. So
They had a site plan approval though, right?
yeah, he's done. Yep. So he's ready to go. That would kick in when he pulls his building permit, which hopefully is soon.
So,
Pro Tem
city
Salvi.
manager, just as a suggestion, if you could put these in a list somewhere
Sure.
so that council has that list somewhere.
Sure.
'Cause, you know, obviously, there's a lot of those pieces, and that would be helpful.
Yep.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure, I would maybe echo some of the comments made by my colleagues here, that I think this is it's a wonderful plan. It uses money that has been allocated several years ago, and for all intents and purposes is just sitting in an account somewhere underutilized, and I think this would be a great way to enhance what I think is an underutilized area. So with that, I would make a motion to reallocate the money that was from earmarked for Elizabeth Park into this particular area for the Landscape. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. I just have to clarify, though, just so we make sure this is all done at one time. You're also proposing that we are going to an additional 15,000 that would be for FRS 2, correct?
Correct, we'd
So
forward
that
that.
needs to be in the same
Yep.
motion.
Along with Mosheri?
No, now Mosheri's just doing, that's.
They're
separate.
donating.
They're donating
Yep.
$10,000.
Councilmember Hauser?
Again, I don't want to quarrel with semantics, but we would only be responsible for reallocating the 15,000 because the site plan approval was contingent on the 15. So anything else above that would be on behalf of the Rewald. So I think, and again, I don't want to call into question the substance of the motion, but for purposes of this, I think it would just be, all we want to move is from project A to project B. Is that correct?
Mr.
Well-
City Attorney, what do you?
Yeah, this needs to be discussed.
So linearly, right, is that you approved back 6 years ago, you approved the special project or the public benefit for the condo project, 15,000. So I would make these linear and have a singular motion to change the public benefit
for the condo project to from Elizabeth Park to Lions Park, as presented.
Right.
That would be a minimum, that would be a singular thing. Now, if what they're saying, I don't recall what the public benefit was for the 15,000 project. I don't,
For FRS two.
FRS.
so is that, I don't remember, did that come to city council and was approved as the public benefit? I don't think it ever came up this far, so you
it did.
can't
Yeah,
commit.
it did.
you
It
can't-
was a
came
special
here.
project, but
Yeah.
I don't remember what, it was bike racks. Remember, you were on the
right.
plan commission then, there's some other things, so you hadn't told us that dollars off, so I don't know what that dollar figure was, we'd have to look that up in the
And
motion.
it was connecting the path behind the current building, right?
Yeah.
With gravel to connect the two
Right.
trails, which
Yeah.
we'll still do.
Yeah. I mean, those conditions still have to be met, so but again, if you come back again for a different plan that was approved, then it's start over again with that commitment, so.
So we're just doing this
I
one
would just do
thing
this
tonight?
one,
Is that what we're saying?
That was my understanding, yes,
Yeah,
I think,
That was not my understanding, so I don't know if you want to discuss this a little more,
Yeah, I mean,
Frank, or are we good?
If we come back again with a new proposal for the office and this 15 that we're trying to push forward is,
Yeah, we don't know what, I'm sorry, don't know what that would be. They could ask for something different, nothing more. It's not we don't make you give that money. So that was a commitment on that project, but you're not gonna do that project, so,
well, we're still gonna do it.
well, that's, okay,
But do we have
We're mixing apples and
we don't have
oranges.
a site plan.
it's been approved unless I've been told it's on hold right now.
I'm not sure everybody knows what we've been talking about right now.
Yeah.
So,
So FRS two, the market and the office building was to be built, and it had conditions of special approval on that. I don't remember what the special gift to the community was. You're right, it was connecting a path, some
right.
other things,
Yeah.
but I don't know if there was a dollar figure put to that.
All we're asking, just so we don't get triple dipped, is we're gonna put the 15 to the condos, reallocate it to this, plus the 15 whenever we do FRS two, which who knows when that'll be, but we're gonna front that money now, plus Mosheri's donation, plus we're gonna donate more, because this is probably a $60,000 to $70,000 project. I just don't wanna do this, and then you ask me for another 15 when we do Rewald number 2.
Was it 15 for FRS two?
Yeah, I think 15.
Okay, I don't,
So
And
I
I thought it was
think-
15 for the condos, but I
Okay.
like 14 better.
Right, so what?
I thought it was
So
14 there.
what, so what I think Mr. Rewald just is saying is, we're taking 15 from one project, but then they want to take 15 from the new project as well.
Right,
and
exactly.
Put it all in this.
Yes.
And keep in mind,
Is that-
we
is
may
that-
we may never do Rewald two, who knows? But we're gonna donate that money now. We just don't wanna get hit again when we do that, after doing all this.
he wants the credit, which is fine. Yes.
It's not gonna cost you anything.
no, that's fine, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to, but we need to do this as two separate. Is that what you're saying?
I would, because the minute should be clear, because you specifically approved the Elizabeth Park project funds, so you should do that separately, because
Go
it's gonna
ahead.
go in separate
Take it away,
files.
Christian, take it away. Back
Because
away.
and also, if I may,
Go ahead, Christian.
Okay,
Councilmember Hauser.
so to be very clear, the motion that I am going to make would be to reallocate the $15,000 that was initially earmarked for Elizabeth Park and convert it over to Lions Park.
Correct.
That's my
Motion,
motion.
motion, is there a second?
I'll support.
Second, Councilmember Trent. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
King,
Yes.
Sage.
yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser, do you have another motion?
Go ahead, Mr.
Did
Councilmember,
you want to make the, I just,
Councilmember Trent.
I mean, if I was had Frank's hat on, I would, how does he make certain that even if it's like 5 years from now with a different council possibly, that you are given that credit? I just don't know how that,
By the
how does
motion.
that work?
How the motion, that's why we're making the motion.
You'll make a motion for that? Okay.
Mr. City Attorney.
Just so the city council is clear, there isn't an automatic $15,000 is the public benefit. I want that to be
Right.
not lost. And I don't remember if it was 15,000 for the FRS two project. I just don't remember what the public give was. so you know, that whole process has to go through planning commission with site plan and recommendation up to city council. Public benefit is then approved by city council. So, you know, it's not just anyone who needs a public benefit to satisfy that writes a check for 15,000. Sometimes it's been, no money is given, but projects are done. And so I just,
Right.
if that was the consideration and it was approved by city council, you could do it for the FRS2 project. But as sitting here, I know I don't recall all the detail of that.
It was more going in the sidewalk connection, a connection at the top, a couple extra bike racks, things like that. I don't remember being a dollar figure, to
A
be honest
little
with you.
wall at the corner by the farmer's market at the end of the lot there, right?
Yeah.
There's a little entrance.
So it wasn't cash, it was.
Right, project.
Projects.
So maybe there's not 15,000 to reallocate. Is that, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, and I understand what Mr. Ruo's
Yeah,
saying, you don't want to
I
get
do.
triple dipped, I get that, so,
Mr. City Attorney, do you have any suggestions?
I think we need to all get on the same page, because I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I just wouldn't want the city to say, okay, take 15,000, the public benefit for FRS2 project is now checked off the list, which I know that they would want some commitment, but I think city council should have the idea what that commitment was, because I don't recall it being a dollar figure that
Yeah.
was.
Should we table this one?
yeah, I know my concern. I would be worried that the path doesn't get done, the little wall. If you build the project, then you don't do those things because they're a part of the public thing, you'd be paying for it twice. That would be my worry on our end, so.
No, we'd still do those. We just would recommend or propose that we're not giving an additional 15 to the city like we did with the condos.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
So is the request really to reallocate the public benefit from FRS2 from
Yes.
the park to this Lions Park project without a specific dollar amount?
Yes.
And I apologize, this is getting a little kind of sideways, but this was news. This hadn't been communicated, only the first part had been communicated. So just trying to clarify it, because, you know, I appreciate what the Rewald family's trying to do for the city, and I think this is a great project. I know you want to get going, you've got workers ready to go, so I'm just trying to figure out how we can support this.
Councilmember King?
For FRS2, as it was previously approved, I think the bike rack, that front wall, and the paths were all part of the site plan, right? So I think those things would still get done.
Yes.
So I wouldn't have a concern with transferring any additional public benefit to this project, because I think those were all still part of the site plan approval.
Councilmember Hauser?
If I may, again, I'm trying to facilitate this to get it across the finish line. Could we agree that we would approve that it would be the economic equivalent of what was going to be for the enhancements, the physical enhancements? I mean, is that something that we could work with, as we could say that we will agree to swap out the economic equivalent of the enhancements to the structure that you were gonna build? I mean,
Yeah, we'll work with you guys. We just want to not get double dipped, basically, and
Triple dipped, right?
Yeah,
would like to get this,
and I don't think anyone up here wants that to
No,
happen.
it's just a little
No,
confusing,
we're trying
yeah.
to, again, bridge some language
Yeah.
here.
So a motion with what you just said, that,
Let me say it again?
yeah,
Okay,
make a
so
motion.
I'll take a stab at this. So what I would do is I would make a motion to allow the developer to donate the economic equivalent of the enhancements that they were going to make to that project, should they ever intend to build it, and recognizing that you won't get double dipped. I apologize, Madam Clerk, for that record, but that's it.
Got that? Is there a second?
I'll support it.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia, second. Councilmember Sage?
I was gonna.
She's getting ready to second.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Bigson,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
See, that was easy, Sean.
Yeah,
Can I,
see you next week.
Rochester.
Welcome back to
No,
City
Thank you for what you're
This is
doing.
government.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jones has a comment.
I just want to say before you leave, how much we appreciate, because you're, besides forward paying, you're paying money out of your own
Yeah.
pockets to make this
Thank you.
park.
Yes.
And it is, the Rewalds are very appreciated in what they're doing
Thank you.
Yeah,
to
thank you.
improve that area. And I can't wait for the first event.
Should be pretty cool.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
I'm sorry, do you have a timeline?
Not yet.
Okay,
We'd like to get going soon, but
Yeah,
all right. Thanks, gentlemen.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, he's using,
Okay, next is the presentation, receive the fiscal year 2025 to 2027 Older Person Commission budget. Renee and Tim, welcome.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor Vixen, council members. Renee Courtwright, Executive Director at the OPC. I'm here with Tim Sauvé, our Administrative Director. And we're excited to talk about our 2025 to 2027 budget. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Salvia, who is on our governing board at the OPC, and also Al Fisk, who is also a representative on the OPC board. So, yeah, we've been very busy at the OPC. We've really came out of the last few years, and our participation is just booming. You can see we have a 22% increase in our participation, and some of the areas in particular, I would say, are on our lower level with our health and wellness activities. As you may have, as a reminder, in 2022, we had a renovation on our cardio weight room, and the numbers in that area have increased. Of course, pickleball, just exercise in general. You'll just really, individuals are really understanding the importance of the health and wellness, the social activity there as well, which is the nucleus of all that we do at the OPC. Our supportive services, we've seen a 22% increase in our Meals on Wheels program. Our senior services are holding steady with our, support groups, information referral, medical equipment loans. Our volunteers, what would we do without our volunteers? Over almost 29,000 hours logged. And then our adult day service, we actually have about 15 participants a day, which is, we're right at it. It's amazing. We've really, coming out of COVID, we had to start over again with staff and participants, and we every day are maxing out. So it is terrific. Our transportation, as you are aware, in 2022, the transportation millage was passed in Oakland County. And since then, we have expanded our transit in our 3 communities, plus going outside of the area, getting individuals to their medical appointments. You can see there a 50% increase since 2022. 30% of the riders are wheelchair users. We're getting people to Royal Oak Beaumont. Of course, we've always gone to Troy Beaumont. We're going to medical facilities on Pontiac, West Bloomfield. So we're getting our citizens to the locations where they need to be to get their medical needs taken care of. And just so you know, hopefully within the next couple of months, we will be transitioning our transit operations from our current location to 328 South Street. We have leased a facility there, which has a nice garage and a wonderful area for our offices, the dispatch, our managers that are overseeing the operations. So it's going to be terrific. It's, as you see right there, 50% increase. And that includes vehicles. We've had an expanse of staffing and vehicles. So we're really pleased that we're going to be making this transition to this new location. It'll free up also our own parking lot to help with all of that 22% increase. So here's some of our budget highlights. We've established a transportation fund, the $3.3 million. The general fund operations, $6.1 million. Our total budget, being 9.4 million. Our operating revenues are projected to exceed annual operating expenditures by $629,500. And we're going into some major facility upgrades in 2025. Just kind of a little here. So we're getting, we just completed our new roof HVAC units. We're gonna get 9 new HVAC units this fall. Complete our LED light upgrade. And we're also getting a wonderful new intercom/emergency management system. So, do you have any questions at this point?
All good?
Oh, very good.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
fantastic.
terrific. All right, so we're asking for the city council to receive our fiscal year 2025-27 budget.
Any questions or comments? Councilmember Jones?
Just a small question, if I was reading the budget, the detail part, it seemed like the grants were decreasing. I think it was around 1 million and then down to 600 and then down to 500. And I just wondered, is that just, they're just not as available or?
Actually, what it was is the COVID year
Okay,
actually increased our grants quite a bit.
Makes
Things
sense.
like that, so those are slowly drying up. We are still getting some money that way, but it was just a big increase.
sure, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councilmember Trent?
Well, I'm always excited about the transportation, and the fact that you are going to Royal Oak and Pontiac, as well. That's a really big deal to do that, and I really appreciate that you went ahead and added those, to your routes, where there's, St. Joe's Hospital and others, because I know my mom went there, and when I had to, use, transportation that's commercial, it was a $200 round trip. Yep. And an hour wait, and an hour wait on the other side, so, yeah.
Sure.
Further questions, comments? Councilmember Hauser?
Sure. This is going to be a little bit self-serving, but I've got a question, not necessarily related to the budget, but, and this follows up on Councilperson Trent's comment, is transportation. Can you explain to me, just in very basic terms, how this works and the services that are available? Believe it or not, I'm a member of the OPC and I've not yet used it, but I want to make sure, and I'm not kidding, but I want to understand how that system works and what the services are available to a resident if they need to be driven somewhere.
Okay, so if they're 55 and older,
Okay.
they are able to use the transit service, and those under the age of 50 that are disabled and have a letter from their doctor saying that they're not able to drive are eligible to participate in the transportation program. They call and set up their appointments through our dispatch department. And then from there, on that day, they will be picked up, usually around 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how far, where they need to go. And then from there, when they get done with their appointment, there's usually, a system where they call in, or they already know when they're going to need to be picked up. They'll say, I'm going to Meijer to go grocery shopping. I'll be ready in 2 hours. And so that's how the system works. So we have the return line at the, in the dispatch area that is always going with individuals to call in to be picked up. And I also want to mention that Oakland County had a veterans riding free rides for veterans, and that's something that is in effect at this point in time as well. Of course, they have to sign up through Oakland County, but then they organize the rides through the transit operators.
Okay.
Did I answer all your
I think
questions?
so. Just a couple, so if you're 55 or older and you live in the city of Rochester, is there other areas too?
Rochester, Rochester Hills, and Oakland Township.
Okay, in those 3 communities, and if you need to go somewhere relatively close, is there a geography boundary that?
For
Okay.
grocery
Yeah, I'm sorry,
shopping, personal
yep.
appointments coming
Okay.
to the OPC, it's within the 3
map up there,
communities.
right.
And then to get to medical appointments, it's outside the area.
Outside? And is there a
And then-
cost per ride?
It's $2 each
$2.
way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Tim, and all the team at the OPC. You guys do such a great job. You know, everyone loves the OPC, right? My favorite part of the budget is clarifying the fact that there are no tax dollars that come from Rochester Hills, Oakland Township that are going towards transportation. All the transportation that we see, all of those awesome blue and purple and white buses, that is all funded through the transportation millage. And the OPC, in my opinion, and the board's opinion, has been doing a great job managing that transportation process. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to receive this. This is the, which budget year is
25
this?
through 27.
The 25 through 27 budget.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll support.
Support by Councilmember Trent. Discussion, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
Tim,
Thank you for all you
coming.
do.
Congrats.
Yes, thank you.
And I'd just like to say Tim is retiring after a long career at Oakland County and then also at the OPC. He was there when I also served on the OPC board and did a great job, so we're wishing you a great retirement.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. Thank you. Okay, item C, the presentation from the Dinosaur Hill is going to be postponed until an August meeting.
August 26th, I've been in correspondence with the board chair, Nick Gatos, and he said he'd be here on August 26th to do the annual report.
Okay. Are there any further public comments? Come on up and name and address for the record. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Paula Filer, and I reside at 133 Grigg Street. So I'm here this evening to discuss the blight affecting my neighborhood, in particular a house on our street that's been a nuisance for many years, impacting the health, safety, welfare, and property values of our community. These concerns are not mine alone, so to that end, I have a petition that I'd like to present.
Thank you.
I have several copies. Okay. By the way of background, numerous complaints have been made about this property for many, many years, yet substantial action has not been taken to fully address our concerns. In May of this year, once again, I reported the blight condition of this property and was informed that it did not qualify under our blight ordinance. This is baffling because according to section 2132, the factors or causes of blight include, but are not limited to, homes that are not structurally sound or vermin-proof. It states further that landscaping is to be maintained with trimmed shrubs, dead plantings, and noxious weeds removed. A dwelling should not show physical deterioration, abandonment, or be uninhabitable. Finally, houses should be free of outside junk and protected from vandals and trespassers. It states any of these conditions are considered to be blight, which leads to undesirable neighborhoods, impaired property values, and detriments to the public health, comfort, safety, and welfare of residents. So those of us who have signed the petition have observed the following through many years. The shrubbery surrounding the house is grossly overgrown and clearly neglected. The lawn is now covered with rampant ground cover with random weeds and dead plants growing in a scattered pattern throughout. The path leading to the front porch is weed-ridden dirt trail. The side of the house is surrounded by more unkept shrubbery mixed with weeds. A partially collapsed fence separates the property line from the neighboring one. Overgrown vegetation is overtaking the porch, which is also cluttered with old furniture that fits the ordinance's definition of junk. But I'd like to point out that the only time minimal maintenance is done is after a complaint has been made. For the residents that have signed the petition, this is not enough. The house on Griggs is in a state of serious disrepair and potentially uninhabitable. To the naked eye, it appears structurally unsound. For all practical purposes, this house should be considered abandoned, as the owners do not reside there. While an owner occasionally visits between 11 p.m. and 6 p.m., it is clear this is not their principal residence. I would like to point out that the only times there are visits is after a complaint has been made. Again, to the residents who have signed this petition, this is not enough. Compounding the problem is that because the house is vacant 90% of the time, it has become the primary residence of feral cats, and we just had a new litter. These cats freely roam our yards, our porches, and our streets. They prey on birds, they disturb our dogs, and they create a public and health nuisance. One homeowner mentioned that the cats lounge on their cushioned furniture on the front porch, which causes an issue for their allergic daughter. Given the fact that feral cats carry many diseases, some dog owners are afraid to let their dogs out in their own fenced yards. Additionally, the house also serves as part-time residence for skunks, possums, and other vermin that come and go as they please. Finally, the house displays a significant amount of items clearly visible through the front and side windows, from the sidewalk, the next-door neighbor's driveway, and the street. This raises serious concerns about the potential fire risk with clutter in a home that is not lived in. As I mentioned, after my complaint, the fire marshal informed me he presented the complaint to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor just determined that the conditions described were outside the parameters of the blight ordinance and did not warrant a citation. Additionally, the fire marshal mentioned there are other residents who have complaints about blight in their neighborhoods, with some of those conditions even worse than ours. Having spoken to other residents and even some of the city council members, it is clear there is a significant blight and feral cat issue in areas of our city. To that end, I am asking city council as a whole if you are fully aware of the complaints that come in about these issues, and the complaints pertaining to the blight and the cats and the other issues that I have described. Accordingly, I'm here this evening not only to bring your attention to the problems, but to ask each of you how the city intends to resolve this situation. Do we need to enhance our existing blight ordinance? Do we need to step up enforcement? Do we need to review our ordinances to address feeding and harboring of feral cats? I am here this evening to make you aware that blight is a serious concern to the residents of this community. We are asking you to personally take a closer look at the situation. It's been going on for far too long. We are asking for immediate attention to do something about the blight issue, the feral cat issue, the issue of abandoned and possibly uninhabitable homes. After all, we are talking about public health, comfort, safety, and welfare of the people who elected you. City Council, I'm eager to hear how City Council intends to address this ongoing situation. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I assume you know what property is?
I do. Chief Jonathan wants to go ahead and give you an update on there, and again,
Yeah, because, I mean, we are.
Attorney Crowd also. Yeah.
I think everybody on the council does not want that kind of stuff in town.
Yep.
So that's.
Mr. Mayor, Council,
Yeah. Chief?
this is a piece of property that we've been monitoring now for multiple years. We have cited them, and most recently, we cited them last week for landscaping issues. We've been to court to them at least twice. And so they typically will do just enough to go ahead and meet the requirements. I will go ahead and say that we do not do anything about looking in people's windows. We can't go on private property. If people have stuff in their house that we can see from the windows, we don't normally get engaged in that because that's not our preview in regards to that. I can't do anything about, I can do something about the continued monitoring from a blight standpoint. We address the blight citywide in a standard process, and a process that can be maintained and taken care of according to the blight ordinance.
So do you feel like the blight ordinance is strong enough then for this situation? Just a general question.
Yes, I think there's enough in the blight ordinance for us to go ahead and maintain, although I think we can make some tweaks to the blight ordinance to make it a little bit easier to understand for our residents and for the folks who might have issues from blight standpoint.
Councilmember King.
So I'm intimately familiar with the home. I've lived there since 2013 and have seen it, and it's continued to deteriorate. My biggest concern is a safety standpoint. I think that home could potentially be a big fire hazard, given the proximity, to other homes that could cause problems for others as well. So that's my biggest concern with the home. And Paul, I apologize. I knew you tried to stop by and get my signature. I'm supportive. I think the abandonment of the home is also an issue. Living there for, over 10 years now, I've seen a car there maybe 10, 15 times. That's not normal, right? And it's gotten to be more infrequent as time's gone by. So I think having an abandoned home in that condition is really concerning, and really for a fire perspective. The landscaping, I kind of knew what I was getting into when we moved into the neighborhood. I didn't expect a lot of change there. But I do think that the safety issue, if you see the condition of the home, it's really concerning.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure. Ms. Fowler, thanks for bringing that to our attention. For anyone else who might be interested in this, is last Thursday, Chief, City Attorney, and John Shepp and I had a pretty good conversation about the existing blight ordinances, and I had suggested that we take a closer look at what we have, but more importantly, look at some other communities and what their ordinances are with respect to blight, and see if we can't make some enhancements and make some modifications in our existing ordinance to make it a little bit more robust, and frankly, to deal with some of the issues that we have seen from time to time that we might not necessarily be able to act on because there might be some ambiguity or some lack of clarity in our ordinances. So what I've done is I've assembled maybe 5 or 6 different ordinances from other cities, and I'm going to send those over to the city attorney for his review and hopefully for our further consideration, because I do think, based on what we've heard from Ms. Fowler and frankly from other residents in town, it's probably time to take a closer look at this ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make it a little bit more enforceable. Additionally, you referenced the feral cat issue, and I don't want that to get lost in this too, because I received 3 other emails over the weekend for cats over on Taylor. And I spoke to city attorney about this, and I think there's a couple competing theories here. There's obviously the TNR, which is the trap, neuter, and release. I would prefer that release to be relocate, but nevertheless, there's that. But I also think that this problem is never going to stop until these 3 legs of a bar stool work. There's awareness, there's the neutering, and there's the lack of ground feeding, okay? It's just my personal view that until the food sources stop, these cats will continue to show up, whether they're neutered or spayed or whatever. They're going to need something to eat, and those have to be eliminated. And I believe there is an ordinance on the books that prohibits ground feeding. And so to the extent that we can start to enforce that a little bit more, along with these other opportunities to trap and neuter and release, I think that might abate some of this feral cat issue, along with the blight. I think they all work hand in hand with one another.
And I thank you, and I think we're going to have a speaker come in and talk about the cat issue. Councilmember Trent?
Yes, I started calling around about this, and I've been aware of the controversy about the trap neuter. The release is is the controversy, and I understand that. So I'm having someone named Cheryl Phillips, who's an expert at this and has dedicated her life to this and over $100,000 of her personal funds to this issue. She's a CAT person. And she's also going to bring a previous executive director of the Warren Humane Society to educate us, because I always feel education and then, take the next steps up to solve this problem, because I'm for solving it, absolutely.
Councilmember Jones.
Back to the blight ordinances. There's another house, and I won't mention the address, that it is very apparent no one has lived there for years and years, and talking to the next door neighbor. Is there anything around that? Does someone have to live in the house? And if they aren't, how long before you can do something about it?
Well, in our city ordinances, there's nothing that says that a person can't have a vacant home. It just needs to be maintained.
Okay.
I would add also that so far this year, we've had over 200 cases that we've enforced in regards to blight. And probably have gone to court 30 times, Mr. Attorney?
Sounds about right.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe just, we'll look at the ordinances, we'll look at the cat issue as a separate issue. Is there anything, Chief, or you can do in the short term to help alleviate?
Well, Mr. Mayor,
like some of those issues, the fire
Sure.
issue, the safety issue,
the one that I don't have authority or jurisdiction is if I see somebody that has items piled in front of a window in a private residence. I don't know of anything that gives me the right to go into that private residence unless I'm missing something in the code.
I don't want you to.
I'd look to city attorney we've been over this multiple times and it's tough. I can tell you that, blight for the most cases, we take a look at on a regular basis. We have some, frequent flyers, I'll use that term. This happens to be one of them. In fact, last week, we had just issued another, letter to them in violation for the milkweed that's growing in the middle of the front yard. Milkweed, I think, is somewhat of a pollinator, but in this case, it looked more like a weed. And so that's why we went ahead and wrote it up from that standpoint. And we do pay attention to the exterior of the house to make sure that it is vermin-proof. And as far as the trimming of bushes, I'll be honest with you, we don't pay a lot of attention to trimming bushes because we would spend a lot of time at everybody's residence on whether or not we think they're trimmed or they're not trimmed, and that's a tough one to go ahead and make a call on. We're looking forward to some of the ideas that Councilman Hauser mentioned to us that he was going to be sending over, and what we can do to go ahead and help to add some clarification, possibly bring back to council for your consideration. Maybe I'll turn it over to the city attorney for some comments on that.
Mr. City Attorney?
Sure. So if you recall, we've had a number of discussions up here, and we have gone through and sped up the process at council's encouragement. And when Ms. Filer did mention that the prosecutor, that would be me, that said that I didn't think it was enough to warrant blight, just know that was well over 2 months ago, that those set of pictures, so things change, as we all know. And so then, when we received updated photos last week at the chief's, we went and fire marshal issued the violation notice in 5 days. We don't go with the 10 or 15, we're going right to the 5. And then, it was for overgrown landscaping, and those weed stuff that's going on, we are sensitive to that, and we did, they got bigger, right? I mean, it's definitely more noticeable now, and the fire marshal and I guess the three of us went and issued the violation notice, and so that is, probably by week's end, we'll probably have a ticket issued, because I don't expect it to be taken care of at that point. Yeah, this stuff on the porch, I did review Ms. Filer's, would I have chairs and an old table and stuff on my porch that look like that? Probably not, but we wouldn't consider people's personal chairs sitting, that wouldn't be part of it, but it is the weeds and the overgrown is what, Mr. Sparks got the violation for. So I was just looking through my notes and, you know, we were in court 2 years ago, in 2022 with it, and this is on the radar, and obviously the chief said that, you know, blight's becoming a real issue in the city, or has been, so we're taking care of it. The court sets its own cadence, but we've sped up on our end, to get to the point, and so, hopefully, that process will go quicker, but we did, issue the notice last week on this particular property, so.
Is the safety and fire hazard, is that an issue that we can look at too?
I would not necessarily determine it, when you say safety or fire issue, that's a tough one to call, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And, you know, from a fire issue, all of our houses on the on the west side, because of the size of the lots, are close together. And so making sure that a fire doesn't break out is important. If one does, responding to it quickly because of the distance spacing. You know, again, it's a tough one. I don't have jurisdiction to go into somebody's home to go ahead and tell them to not have an overabundance of material in it. I don't know of anything in the fire code that gives me that right to be able to do so from that standpoint. I will tell you that, you know, we do go ahead and do our best to keep a focus on what needs to be done and making sure that we apply the standard equally across to all homes and residents in the city from that standpoint. One of the other things that we try to do is get compliance with the issues before we go to court. Once we write the ticket, we really don't have much ability to do anything until we see the courts. Sometimes that can be weeks on end. And so whatever we can get done before we actually issue a ticket, we try to go ahead and do. I will also comment, though, that when we do issue tickets, and we've frequently done that this year more than any other year, when somebody gets a letter from us, they maybe don't pay real attention to it, but when they get a ticket from us, it's all of a sudden like, oh, what can I do to go ahead and get things taken care of? We'll make sure that they get the things done. We still make them come to court. We then make them prove that they've taken care of the things, and then at that time, then we appropriately deal with the ticket.
Councilmember Trent.
Yes, there's nothing in our ordinance that says a home has to have a fire alarm, like my business. I know I get fire inspections at my business.
Even if we were to get into their home, because of an alarm or a smoke alarm or even something along those lines, we of course make recommendations to people about taking care of the clutter and don't do those things. But again, I'm not aware of anything in our fire code to be able to allow us jurisdiction to write an order for that.
Okay, all right.
So, I guess in summing up, we're trying, it's on the top of our list. We need to look at ordinances, we need to look at cats, we need to keep working at it. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's gonna fix the problem tomorrow, but I think the chief's on top of it as much as he can.
Yes, and please, you live there every day. We go by there once or twice a week, so please give us a call and let us know as you see things, especially if you see something towards the back of the house. Remember, we can't go on private property, but we're glad to come on your property if you want to invite us to show us something that needs to be taken care of from that standpoint. So I'm hoping we'll see some changes in the landscaping from the issues that we took last week. And as things come up, please give me a call and we'll do our best within the codes to go ahead and take care of it. Thank you.
And it sounds like those kind of places don't change. We have to change our, because they're not.
You're 100% correct,
They're not
Mr.
gonna
Mayor.
get, all of a sudden,
They've been on our radar for more than 24 months.
Oh, wow.
sad, but,
The landscaping's the least of
Right.
concerns, so.
and the cat thing is is now rising to the top of the list of.
I would say cats are probably rising to, you're exactly right. That's the next piece that we need to deal with from that standpoint.
I'm sorry,
Councilman Hauser.
while I have you here for another 60 seconds, what would be your solution to address the cat problem as an enforcement
Yeah,
officer?
I think cats, and I'm not looking to make neighbors turn in neighbors, but, you know, when we go around, we don't necessarily see people feeding cats. When we do see that, we do send letters and ticket them. I think the city attorney would agree with me that we've actually taken several residents to court for feeding cats. I think getting that word out to our residents not to feed cats is important. And if you do see somebody feeding cats, please give us a call. We'll happily send a letter to those residents. I would tell you that we don't disclose whoever is making the complaint. The letter comes with my signature or my fire marshal's signature on it when it comes to those folks. I think then coming up with a strategy with administration, I think, is probably the next step to see what we can figure out on the, whether it's a release or a relocate standpoint.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd like to.
Oh, Councilmember Trent?
Well, for my part, whatever the solution is, I'd like to make it as humane as possible. That would be my request.
I would never want, I would never do anything that wasn't humane and right for the cats. And of course, we take our lead from city council.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Brian, anything out there? No? Okay, so we are not going to do the approval of the minutes today. We'll do them on August 12th. There's nothing in the consent agenda, old business, public hearing, legislative deliberation. Next, we go to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports and regular business consideration, adopt the 2018 International Fire Code, which proposed change to section 307-1-1, outdoor fires.
I think Chief's got the next two.
All right, Chief. Cats, now fires.
Yeah. This is not just outdoor fires. On a regular basis, we do a review of where we're at with standards and codes for two things: to make sure that we're current and up to date, and also to help maintain our ISO Level 3 certification. To help do that, we need to be adopting the most a set of codes that are consistent. This brings us from the 15 to the 18. In the city of Rochester, we have made changes to the International Fire Code in respect to outdoor fires. This is a piece here deals exactly with what we want to go ahead and do from an outdoor fire standpoint in the city of Rochester in regards to engineered containers, what type of things you can burn in it, and how you can go ahead and burn. So what I'm asking for your consideration is to adopt the entire 2018 fire code with this change and modification to it, which is consistent to what we've been doing. And the last code we did was the 2015, and before that was the 2013. So I'm asking for your consideration.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia. No, Councilmember King?
Well, I had a question. I read through the change. I guess I just didn't understand, aside from going from 15 to 18, what's the actual, implication of it?
Mr. City Attorney?
So before, if they're saying technical, so I want, as far as the ordinance goes, the only changes in the ordinance that's before you is changing from the 15 to 18.
It's just a
So the only reason why the other changes are there is because when I went through the 2018 code, that code changed their numbering system. So all the other language that's in this ordinance amendment is already in your code. So that was perhaps a little confusing. So all the other changes when we're dealing with outdoor fires, we're actually not changing any language that we already have in the code. It's just changing the references to the state code sites that we were modifying. So really the only thing that we're changing in here besides numbers is changing from the 2015 to 18. So I apologize if I didn't make that clear on that.
You good? There's that.
Oh, I guess, what's the impact from 15 to 18?
There's about 6,000 pages between the two codes, and
Oh my gosh.
and so I would be honest to tell you that I've not read and compared one to the other. When they do go through the codes are based off of the NFPA, which is considered a consensus standard. It's where the fire officials will get together and they try to go ahead and come up with the next best set of rules based on fire occurrences, based on research and engineering, and based on good building practices. And then those changes are made within the fire codes to bring it most current. I could not give you a reference to exactly what are the changes. They're typically minor improvements to the codes in respect to what goes on.
So does this impact stuff like our building
Yeah, so.
codes and like residential and commercial
Yeah, no,
building?
so that's a great question. The city uses the International Building Code. In Chapter 9 of the International Building Code, it references the fire codes, and so it's cross-reference in essence that our building code is accepting this code, so this kind of keeps us, as I mentioned, as we go through and we take a look at our annual review process, this is the code that we need to go ahead and move up to. And so the building codes, I'm not so familiar with what changes will be coming in the building codes, just looking at updating the fire codes, and I don't have item by item breakdown of what the changes are going to be.
Mr. City Attorney?
I would just, to that point, there are, like, the fire code is one of the codes that the city adopts by reference. There's like 4 or 5 other ones.
So there's a building code, there's a boiler code, electrical code, plumbing code, mechanical code, fire code, and property maintenance code.
And the last time we looked at those, I believe was to the swimming pool, if you recall, some swimming pool covers that we did that in fencing. So, the fire chief kind of monitors when we need to update this code, the building department will kind of say, hey, we need to, like, this change comes down, or we need to adopt the newest version of that code. Then I bring those, then we do what we do here and just update, and if there's any changes, we kind of go through and make sure that we're consistent. So, I haven't heard from our building official whether or not we need to adopt newer versions of those other codes. This was just one that's been on our radar to get that done.
Yeah, the next one that we're looking at that we may bring to you would be the property maintenance code. And that deals with some of the issues that we've talked about from a blight standpoint, from dealing with maintenance of the building and those types of things. We haven't finished the evaluation yet to determine whether we should be moving towards that one or not, but that may come to you in the future for the property maintenance code.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I apologize. I'm just not, maybe I'm not grasping. So who uses the fire code? Like,
So
how does this get used and applied?
So from the fire code, it tells us, it has many different classifications, everything from if you had a tire warehouse or a tire store to a gas station to a laundromat, to different types of specialized businesses that have special hazards. You might imagine in a laundromat, there's issues with chemicals. In a tire warehouse, because of the heavy load of the tires. In a paper plant or some of the other food processing. Then there's general parts of the code that deal with egress or emergency access and egress for people to get in and out of the property. Then it deals with things along fire alarms, where fire alarms are required, what is required in regards to notification and annunciation. Then in suppression is about sprinkler systems. Sprinkler systems probably change the most because they do full-scale fire testing to determine what the density of the sprinkler might need to be for a particular occupancy, whether it needs to be increased or it can be decreased. It also will go ahead and set some criteria about the size of the building. An example, it says that an office building of 12,000 square feet or more must be suppressed. And so it gives us some guidelines that we go in respect to, and really the life safety would be fire alarms, sprinklers, suppression, egress, and then it'll get into some specific of types of buildings and type of protection that needs to be done because of the occupancies of those buildings.
Is there a reason that we're adopting a 2018 code or
Because
edition
sure.
now versus 5 years ago?
Don't look at it as an 18 code, look at it as it's the current one that's been approved. And so they're working on the next series of codes that'll come out in the next few years. It just so happens to be called 18.
But was it only recently approved?
It was approved late last year, and I typically look at doing these types of things in the spring or early summer after I do the review for the ISO audit.
Okay, so this is the current, even though the
Yes,
dating is.
yeah. In fact, we kind of prepared this earlier in the year to go ahead and bring to you, but there was just some other things that we wanted to get done and reviews to make sure that we were in good shape. So that's why we're bringing it to you now.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvi?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. Those were some of the questions that I had earlier. So, my take on this is really housekeeping, updating our ordinances to reflect the current fire code. So with that, I'd make a motion to adopt the proposed change to section 307.1.1 for outdoor fires.
First reading and introduction, ma'am.
For first reading and introduction.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia. Support by Councilmember Sage. Discussion, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration to approve a resolution for the Rochester Emergency Operations Support Plan. Chief.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the city of Rochester many years ago opted to go ahead and be a signatory for the Oakland County Emergency Response Plan. In other words, the Oakland County has a countywide emergency response plan, and we have to have our own that supports that process. In other words, how the city of Rochester would operate in the event of an emergency. Within that plan, we talk about the functions of city council. City council in the plan is what we call our policy and strategy group. The fire department, police department, and DPW all then, along with the city staff, participates in the operational end of it. Within that plan, the process would be for the city of Rochester to handle emergencies on their own first, then mutual aid, and then we would then potentially call for a city-wide emergency that the mayor would sign, and then we would kick into the county, and then from the county to the state. This is, in essence, a housekeeping issue. We've updated our plan to the current levels of where we're at in regards to organization and staff, and to go ahead and meet the current the current rules. And by having our current and up-to-date plan, that allows us to go ahead and look to go ahead for grant money for not only emergency preparedness, but in the event that we were to go ahead and declare a disaster. Recent history, a year or so ago, the mayor declared a disaster in regards to when the water main was broke, and we received some funding for that. And I believe we just did another one last week because of the trail washout. If we don't have a current and up-to-date emergency plan, we would not be able to do that and qualify for funding. Just a side note, coming up in the fall, I'll be sending a note to you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council to put together our tabletop exercise to go ahead and bring everybody current and up to date as the group of policy and strategy, what we need to be able to do when we do have an emergency, the critical functions that you all fill during our emergency response and recovery process. I did put a copy of our plan in the package. It's probably pretty good to read. If you're needing to sleep one night, it's not necessarily very exciting, but it kind of spells out the functions of the mayor, the city manager, and then city council, and to go ahead and meet our requirements to be able to handle emergencies.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together, and I would like to have a short tabletop exercise this fall. It doesn't need to be a whole day activity, but if you could make it
Yeah,
a condensed
I'm
activity, it'd be great.
Looking to do it on a Saturday, hopefully that's okay, from like a 9 to 12. And when we do that, we do 2 tabletops. We'll do a tabletop for you, and then we do a tabletop for the emergency responders and a different part of the fire station to go ahead and challenge them, just as we would challenge you in respect to the Policy and Strategy Committee.
Okay. My second question is, I know we just declared the state of emergency last Friday, and I don't see anything in this plan that talks about the communication strategy. How is that communicated to council, to the public? You know, I read about it on Facebook. I know it came late Friday, but I would think there should be some sort of communication. I didn't see that in here.
Good point.
That's a good point. It's not necessarily part of the plan, but I think that's a shortcoming that I'll get corrected.
Again, we also.
We do have we do have an internal communication plan that it includes, all of our council and our staff. We kind of keep that out of this because this is a public document that we don't want to have some of those communication pieces in. But I do agree with you, that we could, do a little bit more transparency with, our communication plan for this.
Right, so maybe it just references
I
the city
think-
communications plan, and then from the city side, you know, if we could
Yeah.
just, you know.
No,
I think-
that's a good suggestion.
And I think this one on Friday, Nick mentioned it in his report.
Yeah, I sent out a separate email, actually, on
Right.
both, and I described everything we had just done, disaster.
but right,
It was
but-
after the manager's report, so it was, we did that before that, so.
And I think we also had an emergency thing with COVID. At that time. I think if we wanted to have our meetings virtual, we had to declare an emergency.
There's something with the
So
water.
is there Councilmember Jones?
And I don't know what this team is called, but there's
A CERT team?
like, yeah,
Is it CERT
that
team?
meets every week and they go through drills, correct? Like a critical response team?
So are you talking
Sure.
about in the event that if there was something,
Like a
like a shooter or some of those things?
disaster of some sort, yeah. What
Yeah,
is
so,
it?
so that's different than the emergency response team. That's a critical incident stress debriefing process, and we have that, but it's not contained within the emergency, excuse me, within the emergency response plan.
So the reason I was asking is because I had met someone who is on that team, a nurse, and I don't know which team it is. That's why I was just trying to get clarification.
Okay.
Because I said to her, "Oh, you should come to a city council meeting, and the public should know." That's like, to me, a big deal that we're doing that.
And so that's a resource, and the county has a critical incidents, response debriefing team that's set up that we can go ahead and bring in. It was offered to all of our emergency responders after the unfortunate act at the splash pad. And it was also offered then to the community through Rochester Hills. So that is available for us as a resource to bring in, from that standpoint. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the team I'm talking about. I need to find out more, and I'll
If you
come
want,
back
just
with
call me
it.
direct and I'll get
Okay.
whatever information you like to have for it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Trent?
Yeah, I thought it was a CERT team?
Are you talking about our CERT team, our
CERT
our
team?
Citizens Emergency Response Team?
I think that's
That's
it.
what I think.
Oh, okay, so we have a Citizens Emergency Response Team. It's a group of citizens and residents who not only live in the city of Rochester, we actually have some from Washington Township, from Waterford, from Southfield. Rochester, about 7 years ago, was given the award for the best CERT team in the state of Michigan. We have a very proactive group here of about 50 active members. We use the CERT team, excuse me, on large events that we have.
Yeah,
For
okay.
like
That's it, yep.
parades and
Yeah.
all of the different things. In fact, they came in and helped out during the last storm to help direct traffic and for those things. They are really a supporter of both police, fire, and the DPW from the standpoint that would allow us to then do some of the more critical or technical things to where they can go ahead and help. They're trained in first aid, they're trained in basic rescue, they're trained in traffic control and those things. So it's a very active group of people that we have within the city of Rochester, and we're very honored to be able to have them available. They meet on a monthly basis at the fire station, and they do drills on a regular basis. Once a year, they'll do a full tabletop exercise, in essence, to where it's a mass casualty, to where they'll come and help out.
Thank you for
I think
clarifying
that's
that.
what- yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, yeah.
So, and we're always recruiting.
Is there a motion?
Did you have something?
I'm
sorry, I
No,
didn't.
that's great. I was just gonna make a quick comment in terms of communication. I did see today there is a bulletin on the city website
I saw that.
about the state emergency, and there's resources. There was a link you could go to submit a claim for property damage, if you've sustained any.
Right, that's
So-
why I want all the residents to know, because I'm thinking if I live over in this sub and I didn't go to the website and look for that, I'm not gonna know to submit.
Yeah.
So it's just important.
Yep.
Agreed. Councilmember Trent?
Yes, before I make a motion, I just wanted to say that I remember when I first got on council and there was a water outage, and all of us council members were called. We had a conference call, and all our department heads were on, and we worked out a plan. Yeah, it worked out really well. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the Rochester Emergency Operations Support Plan. Thank you for doing this as well.
Motion by Councilmember Trent,
Support?
support by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor,
Chief.
just a quick question, then, if I were to look for some dates in September after the Labor Day, would that sound somewhat decent? I'll send dates out to council to try to pick one for the best, or do you want to make it after September? If there's, or if you want to think about it, just
Yeah, we'll
drop
think
me a
about
note
it. We'll
and-
think about it.
Yeah, and we'll try to find a date that's, but would like to try to get it fairly
Michigan
soon.
State football
Yeah.
schedule.
That's right. That's every day. though.
Saturdays are not good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Third Monday,
Could be,
yeah, right?
Those are,
Is that Monday Night Football?
Yeah. Right.
Just do it Monday morning,
yeah.
7 a.m.
Councilmember King, those are very important things.
I did include
Football season.
both
There you
universities too. I was trying to be.
Next is consideration of awarding L. Anthony Construction to complete curb and gutter replacement in the amount of $210,000.01. Mr. Alec, DPW Director.
Hello, Mayor, Council. So a public bid opening was held on May 30th for the replacement of concrete curb and gutters on Rock Valley, Milliconquins, and part of Wingate. The lowest bid was from L. Anthony Construction for $210,001. So deteriorating concrete curb and gutter is becoming more apparent on the east side of the city. And staff, as well as the asset management committee, have begun planning out replacement of these deteriorating sections in conjunction with road mill and fill projects. So the first year of this replacement is to replace, the first year of replacement is to include sections, like I said, on Rock Valley, Milliconquin, and parts of Wingate. That's mostly at the, base of driveway approaches, and then areas in between driveways where there's deteriorating curb. So it's not all of the curbs, just where there's deteriorating sections. And then the plan is to have Hutch Paving do road resurfacing once the concrete curb work is completed.
Oh, I see.
So there is a map, I don't know if it's with this memo or with the mill and fill memo after this that has the areas I'm talking about. Yep, so the areas in blue would be this year for the curb replacement project. And then I did include that, so their bid was for $210,000 or $210,001. It is recommended that we have a 10% contingency attached to that, of around $21,000, so that brings the total to $231,001.
Mr. Mayor, if you, at the last council meeting, this came up, and we had it pulled, the item, and you asked us to go back to meet with the residents, we had a productive meeting, Roy and Dennis McGee and Alec and I and Jason and Seal. Didn't come to the right way, the way the residents would like was all the curbs replaced for various reasons, whether it's perceived bad concrete, it is some bad concrete, the old mix, there's just not enough money. I mean, it would be millions of dollars, literally. So Alls we can do is the resources we have is to fix the problems that we can. After that meeting, drove a lot of the other streets, and every street on the east side looks exactly like Rock Valley and Algonquin's. It's a monumental effort. It's these roll curbs, they just haven't held up. And I can't answer if they were inspected right back in the day, or they just wore out. They're getting old, they're not very thick. So I appreciated working with Roy and Dennis. They were gracious enough to keep their cool in the meeting, because I know we couldn't tell them what we wanted them to hear, which was rip it all out and do all of it. It's just fiscally not possible at this time. So I think Roy's here, and you might want to have a couple comments, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Roy, do you want to come up and speak? Sure. Come on up. Thank you for coming tonight, Roy.
Thank you for having me. Mayor Bixson, Council, Nick, Mr. Kraft, Ms. O'Connell. Good evening.
So Roy, why don't you,
especially when I'm done.
why don't you give us your name and address for the people, for the record and the people
For
who
the
don't?
books, Roy Konechny, spell it.
We got it. We got it.
We got it.
You got it.
Starts with a
1564 Millicoquins Court. Millicoquins Court is part of Cross Creek Condo Association. I happen to be dumb enough to be on the board of Cross Creek Condo Association.
Roy, we all say that about some things we're on occasionally.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you all say that about me, but okay.
About all of our service.
The issue at hand, as I've discussed with Elk several times and with Nick, Nick hit the nail on the head. So I've got very little to speak about other than I think the city council has to understand that we're not fixing a problem here. We're putting a Band-Aid where it's bleeding, and tomorrow or next week or next year, it's going to bleed elsewhere. Because this year, I counted 42 new cracks and separations. How did I know they're new? Just dealing with the raw concrete that is exposed, I assume that was falling apart or diminishing this year. Does that necessarily mean the process of pouring new and tying it into this concrete that's fallen apart is the solution? And will the part, the new, tied into the old be adequate? Will it hold up? I don't know. I had asked for the old concrete, just saw cut a section and get it analyzed. Is it completely all bad? Because the area that it started, by the way, I'm an original owner, so I'm going on year 26. And the concrete was poured 1997, 1998 for the curbs. I, like Nick, don't know whether it was the concrete contractor or whether it was the cement that he bought from the cement company, but the problem begins at about the third house north of where our complex begins. And on Wingate, the main drag, north and south drag between Runyon and Parkdale.
Correct.
So noticing that and why all of a sudden just this curb has broken apart on both sides of the street, not necessarily only on the driveway side, primarily on the driveway, but not necessarily only there, on both sides of the street. And it stops right at the top of the hill where the more affluent and more expensive homes are, right at the top as you're heading south. So it's approximately about 1,000 feet of Wingate. Most of the property is on Rock Valley, a side street off of Wingate, and Millicoquins is the court off of Wingate. But noticing that it is only in this section, I can't believe that fixing just the cracked areas and tying it into what we hope to be good areas is a solution. So I just want you to understand, down the road, somebody else will be standing here talking about how bad their curbs and the street gutters are. One of the items that concerns me, I also handle the irrigation for Cross Creek. There are, I counted yesterday, 350, give or take some, sections that are going to be replaced. Some as small as 3 foot, some as large as, most are 5 foot, and there are some that are 80 foot, 100 feet, because then everything in between is deteriorated. The fixing of just those sections and tying it into a 5 foot, what we call a good piece, and then have another one that's bad piece, I don't think it's going to resolve the situation. I had mentioned to Alex, I think the city would be wasting their money unless we know the total extent of the problem. I know we don't have the money. I don't know what we could do different. Perhaps prioritizing some of the money that this complex has paid in their taxes, and it ended up on the west side. Sometime in the future, this city will have a east-west civil war fighting for the tax dollars because we have the divide.
We all get elected citywide here.
Yeah. But where I was going with the 350 sections, that's going to require about 700 saw cuts. And a saw cut, in order to get through the complete curve, correct me when I'm wrong, please, you need to go about 6 inches into the lawn. Okay, they generally use 16-inch diameter saws, and you're going to go into the lawn. I have a problem in running the irrigation, that irrigation lines are resting right against the back of the curbs.
They are.
So that will, if I'm somewhat accurate, there could be as many as 700 cuts of the irrigation lines.
Wouldn't they know?
I understand from Mr. Dickinson, Jason Dickinson, who works for Alex, that the repair will include the repair of the irrigation system also. Okay. Lastly, the thing that concerns me the most is the contractor who did the job. I have let me see. We replaced, let me rephrase, we replaced 27 approaches in the complex, 53 buildings, they're all duplexes, so therefore it's 106 units. Everybody has their own driveway. So that would, I replaced 28 of them already. I've got 31 more that either need repair or replacement because the concrete slabs, the approach is 10 foot of easement, 16 foot wide at the sidewalk, blooming out to 18, 19 feet at the curb. In repairing it, I'm going to try a process of putting in new concrete in a saw-cut groove. And in saw-cutting the concrete in the approach, we ran into 2-inch concrete, where code calls for 6 inches on all approaches to driveways. That scares me a little bit because the same contractor did the curbs and the gutters. I don't know what we're going to tie into until somebody takes out certain sections. So I have a concern there. We have 2 lawyers here. Would I get in trouble knowing that I'm dealing with 2-inch concrete, and it should be 6-inch, and mend that approach? Don't answer now.
I can't.
That sounds like an engineering question.
I'll pay you, the association will pay you for an answer, but I really don't know. I don't know what to do with the driveway separating in the middle, and some of them are separated by 4 inches.
Wow.
Apart because of gravity and driving over it, or because it just crumbled up. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Sorry
Roy.
to be so lengthy. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Thank
Roy.
you.
Thank you.
You know, I just like to comment, I know Roy has always been a fix-it-the-right-way person, and I agree with that, but then you get to the point where you have finite resources, and so sometimes mill and fill is better than nothing, I guess, or all we can do. So, Councilmember Trent?
Yeah, so when these contractors are giving these bids, did they have any input? Do they see the actual, I mean, they go out and they view.
Go out and
the-
inspect.
Yeah, do they
We
have
give them
any,
the specs of what they have to.
do they have
replace
any
it with.
input on what this could be, or why this part, this, like Roy was saying, that this is deteriorating, but this other one isn't? I mean, they must run into these issues if it's concrete or the way it's poured or
We have
whatnot.
not had any meetings with this contractor yet, as.
Is
they
this
have not
Hutch
gotten
Paving or,
approval
or Anthony
No, L.
Construction?
Anthony Construction.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're still on that one.
I didn't understand how they tied together. I guess they don't. Sorry.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure, I've got just a quick question, Alec, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to get some confirmation. So when I look at the bid tabulation sheets here, obviously L. Anthony is a little bit lower than Hutch Paving and substantially lower than the 10 bidder. I'm presuming, and Aceel, you have also gone with pre-bid, post-bid meetings with these contractors to make sure that they've not missed anything in the scope and that they're comfortable with that price?
They are allowed to, before bids are open, to ask any questions
Okay.
on the bid specs. And so those are answered and given to everyone.
All right, just because I remember there was an issue last time, or I think it was this project where someone got in, maybe they didn't realize what they were getting
Oh, that's
themselves
right,
into.
yeah,
Right.
And they
yeah.
backed out, so I want to make sure
We made it
that
more
we don't.
clear this time
Okay,
what all is involved. Yep, sorry.
please.
I did call L. Anthony after the bids just because he was lower than the second bidder by 50, I think, grand, and he knew exactly what he's bidding, and he was good with the numbers.
Okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, one final question, and Aceel, maybe you want to answer this as well. just so we know and the public knows as well, that these contractors are required to post a payment and performance bond as well as part of their work, right? So if they fail to do the work as required, or there's an issue about performance otherwise, and the default, we can issue that default and we can have that work completed by someone else under that bond, correct?
And also, we have 2-year maintenance bond,
Yep.
that if the project's complete and we have issues with the new concrete, then we can go after that. We have 2 years after that.
That's what I want to know. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but if we start the first cut and the contractor and Roy, what Roy notices is the fact, we'll be back. We can't, we're not going to tie into something that's going to fall apart. Well, the contractor won't warrant that work, I'm sure, so we will have to think on our feet quickly, whether it's cut the scope and have to do all of them on one side. We talked about a bunch of different ways. Do we just do Rock Valley? But that took up all the money. So then the next year, we had planned to move someplace else on the east side. So then we'd have to keep delaying it here. So again, anytime you do a construction project, especially underground, when things come up, you have to regroup. So we will certainly do that. We're not going to throw our money away in a short-term fix.
Councilmember Jones?
Just a quick comment, because it just is interesting to me, the variance from the 10th bidder to that's such a huge disparity. And I do appreciate the info you gave us. It was really broken down well, so you could look at where the differences are. Is that usually so?
It's not that uncommon. I mean, for the bridge maintenance program bids we did a few months ago, that one had a pretty large gap from the lowest to the highest as well.
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, we've been seeing that. So like to estimate a project, like at infrastructure committee, I always used to tell them, I swear I know how to estimate projects, but I don't know what's going on with the contractors. So some of them, they just like want to get the job if they're making good money because they're busy. And some of them, they want the job and they bid it hard. So it depends on, I don't know, last 2 years, it's been just so hard to estimate a project.
Yeah, it does worry me a little. I gotta say.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Thank you. Mayor, to kind of tag on your comments from an infrastructure, or now what we call asset management committee standpoint, it's such a tough job to allocate the limited resources we have. I mean, we try to use the data, we try to use the Pacer ratings and feedback from residents, look, the sub that I live in, our curbs were poured well before Roy's subs, those curbs were poured. So, my HOA is, clamoring, hey, how come you're not doing our curbs? Our curbs look bad. A few years back, we had been doing sidewalks, and when we do sidewalks, we kind of do a similar approach. We do, we just do the blocks of cement that are the worst. So we said, well, hey, let's kind of take the same approach with curb and gutters, because we haven't done these, and we really need to do this. So that's where we first did the small sections, just the 3 feet. And then we realized that that is not going to work. So back to the committee, back to the drawing board, input from our engineers, what is the best way to do it? Candidly, unless we had a huge pile of money, there just is not a perfect way to do this. And even in my mind, if we had a pile of money, then all of those roads would fail at the same time. All those curbs would fail at the same time. So that isn't even a perfect solution. So there's limited resources, limited time, and so, we're balancing all of these things, and in my opinion, it was very important to get the input from the HOA and the group of residents that we were, trying to satisfy and improve their infrastructure, knowing that there's all of these other areas that still need work. So, is this going to be a perfect approach? Probably not. Are we going to do it? I hope. And then maybe next year, do we maybe need to modify it or do something different? Maybe. But in my opinion, just kind of wanted to give council a little bit more of that background from an infrastructure standpoint, as well as for the residents to just know that, we're doing our best to allocate these dollars to keep working away at the problem areas that we have.
And to comment on that too, I don't know if I really specified this when I was speaking earlier, but the plan is moving forward to kind of combine these curb replacement projects with our mill and fill program. So I guess Roy was saying before, when they cut the concrete, the blade does go a little bit further than the actual concrete. And so that prevents any deterioration from the old asphalt there when they're tearing out the old concrete. That's how we decided on doing the mill and fill right afterwards, so it would have more of a cleaner new look. So some of these years moving forward, it's gonna be the roads that need a mill and fill, that'll be having the curb replacement work done as well.
Very good. Councilmember Trent?
Yeah, two things. So if the blade does hit the irrigation tube or hose, that would be the company that would pay for it, would be my,
Correct,
okay,
yes.
just
Yeah.
wanted to
We
clarify
do our best
that.
beforehand to mark
Yeah,
irrigation lines.
yeah, I
and
mean, they are
Right.
pretty close. and they're-
Accidents happen,
Yeah.
and they do happen, but.
And the other thing, to Councilwoman Jones' point, is it's almost, $270,000 difference. I mean, that, so you're actually getting the exact same thing. You get an apple or an apple, right? Because, I mean, that is a lot of money. I mean, like, look, it's
You'd be
just,
surprised, yeah,
I-
putting together bids and estimates is almost more of an art than it is a science.
well, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of bidding, I guess, too, but yeah, it just.
Councilmember Hauser?
To that point, it's kind of like a bell curve, in a sense where if you're aggressive and you really need to work, you're going to be low. If you don't need to work and you're not hungry, you're going to throw a number out there. If you get it, great. If not, you're going to move on. So I appreciate exactly what you're saying, because those are concerns. But I think, I feel a bit comfortable, obviously, payment performance, the pre-bid, post-bid
Okay.
walkthroughs, the 2-year warranty, and those other measures that we've taken to make sure that this is exactly what we're going to get.
We do check references
Yes,
too for the
exactly.
company, just because they're the lowest doesn't mean that we have to take them. We want to make sure that they are still a company that's going to do good work.
And you've
Councilmember
worked with
Trent?
them? You've worked with them before? You know them?
Actually, in Shelby Township, they've been doing concrete for the last 3 years with them, so
Okay,
they're
so
happy
that's
with
what you
them.
did. Well, yeah, and just to your point, Councilmember Hauser, yeah, I do know about bids, I do them all the time.
Well, and I didn't mean to say that in a bad
It seemed
way.
like you thought maybe I didn't know
No,
about
no, no,
bids.
no.
I know, that I don't know about concrete bids, but I do kind of know about some of them, because I worked with a mill and fill company, so yeah, I know a little bit
I
about
did
it.
not mean to infer anything to the contrary.
Just wanted to make
Is there-
sure you knew.
Councilmember King?
Just a quick question. I was looking at the map, and we outlined some project costs for 2026 in areas of the city that would get redone. Are those kind
are
of just
those are
estimates,
estimates, yeah.
based on what we have today? Okay. And then it looks like the 2026 Main Street reconstruction, is that current? Because I thought it was 27.
27.
Okay.
Yeah, it says fiscal year 2026, so that would include going into 2027.
Got it. And the DDA, is that also in that same timeline?
Those aren't given a year right now, those are just, want to put them on a map so they're in front of people's eyes and those are needed.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Are you
Are
complete?
you finished?
Okay, all right. Again, good discussion, good questions. Thank you, Roy, for your feedback, and of course, we're gonna keep working on it and keep considering it, and with that, I would like to make a motion to award the concrete curb and gutter replacement project to L. Anthony Construction for an amount of $210,000 and $1. That's hard to say. And I will agree to include the 10% contingency. You know how I feel about those, but I will agree.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia,
I'll support.
support by Mayor, Councilmember Trent. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration awarding Hutch Paving, Inc. for the 2024 Road Mill and Fill Program for a total of $363,120.33.
Yep, so Hutch Paving did the city's mill and fill project last summer. We've been very pleased with their work, and they've agreed to extend their same pricings from last summer for this year, which is really nice as well. So on that same map, we'll show the blue lines of this summer's proposed roads for a total of $363,120.33. Also reviewed in the Asset Management Committee. I think we were all happy with Hutch's performance last summer. They're actually also coming back to redo some of those areas that weren't quite right this summer for no charge to us. So that's, companies want to do that. It's pretty awesome.
Councilmember Jones?
Just to comment on them, whether it was negotiated on your part or just to give the same pricing is pretty remarkable, actually. And then to come back with what you're just saying and fix at no charge really says something about them as a company, especially if you're happy with their work. So it's
And
a
they-
no-brainer.
They do a good job, I thought, and they're also fast. I mean, they come into your street and they're gone very quickly.
Sounds good then.
Councilmember Hauser?
No, I'll make a motion to award the 2024 Road Mill and Fill project to Hutch Paving for $363,120.33.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Hauser, support by Councilmember Sage. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Alec. Next is the receipt of the check register report. Anybody have any questions? Now we'll receive a report from the various boards and commissions, a report from the Rochester Community House. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Yes, so Community House Board met July 16th, went over their financials, the director's report. Obviously, they are awaiting the signed budget from the state of Michigan, as we all are, and heard our comments from Senator Weber earlier. So lots of discussion, actually, regarding security for the building and improved safety measures, which I thought was very important. There's been some conversation with Chief George, probably we'll have he or someone else from the police department out to do more walkthroughs. They are adding technology, new cameras, internal panic buttons, et cetera. So I think that's really good for the community house. And then also kind of put this on your radar that next year, July 1st, 2025, will be 50 years of the community house as a nonprofit. So like Dinosaur Hill this year, community house is next year.
Wow,
Very good.
cool.
Just a quick question.
Councilmember Jones?
The security measures, changing, was there an incident?
There
or
was
they
no
just feel like
incident.
they're not up to date?
I think everyone in our communities are feeling a heightened sense of needing to be secure. There are children's classes that go on their summer camps, all sorts of things. Everyone just wants that little
Felt it was
extra reassurance. Are we doing everything we can to keep everybody safe?
Thank you.
Very good. Next is a report from the Pink Creek Trailway Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have begun our master plan discussions, and a survey will be released to the community probably around the 1st of September for their input before we start planning. We'll have to do some public meetings as well, and we'll notice. So you'll see those in the post, and we'll get ample announcements out there. Labor Day Bridge Walk is coming up. That's the event on our side of the trail. We start the season off up in Lake Orion, and then this one kind of works to our favor down here. So that's why I put the sponsorship forms in front of you in case you have someone in town that might want to sponsor the Labor Day Bridge Walk. And we've also received notification from Mr. Rush indicating that with the approval of the site plan and the approval of the zoning ordinance change, that it triggered the termination of his agreement, license agreement with the trail. We're trying to get clarification because in that agreement, it says within 90 days, you're going to have the fence removed, soil remediation done, tree planting, and the assurance that there will not be a new private sidewalk built on the property. So I don't know, are they going to do soil bearing, or are they just going to scoop up a layer and put new dirt down? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know until the engineering plan comes back. So I would assume all that would be done after engineering review, and we cover all those ingredients as we look to prepare to build the basements and things that are, build the base for the site. So I would think he wouldn't take anything down until they start the project. And they are on a fast track. So they've got engineering in here, building permits, plans, so they're going to go ahead. So I think it would all be in conjunction with each other to make sure. We'll monitor all of that as part of our approved engineering plan.
Okay. Councilmember Trenton.
I don't know who I asked this to. So, yeah, my understanding is Rush no longer, the agreement's ended. So now the Solaronics champion picks that up. So is this like another like non-binding agreement? Or is there something written saying that we're going to honor this and we're going to do all the things that they said they were going to do?
It's on the approved site plan, so they couldn't get a building permit or a C of O until they did everything on the site plan. We're
It's
covered
on the
that way.
site plan, that they will honor that.
Everything's
and
on
There's
there.
not a problem. So if there is a problem, what do they do? What does
They
Big
will-
Creek Trailways do?
They would never get a CBO.
Okay.
The buildings.
Just want to understand what Paint Creek Trailways Commission's, you know,
I believe everybody's very aware of that situation.
we just have to
Keep
triple
an eye on that.
confirm. Just keep my eagle eye on it. It's nature.
Sage, all done?
Public
Yes, sir.
lands, it's public right away.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure. Mr. Sage, this is a question I got the other day from someone. This is not an attack on e-bikes. But has there been any discussion about the speed limitations imposed on e-bikes from like certain areas downtown on that trail? Has it ever come up in discussion that you?
Every meeting.
Okay. And can you share with us any type of
So
consent?
the state has a law.
Okay.
With regard to speed. We adhere to that
Do
on
you
the
know what that
trail.
speed limit is?
It's like 24 miles an hour or something
Yikes.
like that.
Okay.
We don't have the resources to actually ticket people.
Okay.
I guess that would be the only way to enforce it. But as you know, as a trail user, there are people even on regular bikes that go
Sure.
exceedingly fast
Right.
on that trail. So we do have a bike patroller that tries to curtail that activity. We don't have any policemen out there. Sometimes they're out there on their horses, but they're not tracking anybody down for a speeding ticket.
So it is, they are legal,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
motorized,
Yep.
anything motorized.
The state,
Councilmember Trent?
Well, I mean, can't they just write a ticket randomly to just get the point, like someone, that travels like wildfire. They're like, hey, I got a ticket. I mean,
Well, the police would have to be out there, though.
Well, I mean, just every once in a while, just like give a ticket. I mean, that is our,
Somebody's
we
gotta pay the
own that
policeman
part
to
of the
be out
trail. We're supposed to.
24 is really, that's really
It's like a
fast.
car.
Super fast.
Yeah, but if they're beyond 24, that's like 30. I mean, I don't know, somebody whipping.
well, they make them
I'm just
very,
saying.
very quickly fast.
We have officers that are on the trail. We have police officers out there on a bike. I mean, so can't that be part of their duty? Just occasionally write a ticket.
And again, I'm not against the e-bike. I think they're great. I think just it could be congested on that from, like where Tony's or La Puma's is up to, Tinkin. Sometimes they can get a little bit fast up there. And I agree with you. E-bikes are pedal bikes, so that's all. I'm just curious.
Councilmember King?
I was just gonna say, even going 10, 12 miles an hour through there is going to feel fast if you're a pedestrian. So if the law is 24, you can't write a ticket for somebody that's going 10, 12
No.
that you feel is gonna be So to be
No,
out there,
no, I'm
they're
saying
still not gonna
30.
be able to do a whole lot if the law is 24. But
People are always startled when you go by them, but then they have their earphones in and don't hear you say on the left. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah.
constant. Okay, on to the Downtown Development Authority. Councilmember Trent?
The meeting was on last Wednesday, on the 17th of July. So good news, the 265 East 2nd Street, the previous vet hospital that will become the new Graham is now owned by the DDA. The closing was Friday at noon or 1-ish. And also, second good news, grant funding from Oakland County has been formally approved, and they are one step closer to receiving those funds, which is somewhere between 800 and 900,000. They don't have the final numbers. Another bit of good news is the summer foot patrol in the downtown was approved to start January 19th through August 3rd, that they will have foot patrol in the downtown from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., and they were just saying they were reinstating that because they had that at previous years. And they just wanted to bring it back. And then just so people know, there's going to be an annual maintenance walk that will be on Wednesday, July 31 at 9 a.m. if anybody wants to get up bright and early and before work. Walk around with the site development team, and Tony La Puma, the site development chair, will be leading council members are invited to go on the maintenance tour.
Mr.
July
LaPuma
31.
is bringing donuts, not coney donuts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Again, on the,
I'm sorry, July 31st at 9 a.m.
okay.
Yeah,
Do you know where they meet?
Collaboration Studio.
Okay.
That's it.
Very good.
That's all I
Thank you.
got.
Next is a report from the Rochester Avon Recreation Authority, RARA, Councilmember King.
Yep. We also met last Wednesday on the 17th, and we have our newest representative from Avondale School District, Kenny O'Shaughnessy. He's the athletic director. I think it'll be a great addition to the organization, having the sports background. So, good addition to the team. The biggest thing we discussed was the approval of our second quarter budget amendment, the 2025 proposed budget and the 2026-27 proposed budget. Robra is going to be coming here, David Ward will be here to present the budget right after he goes to Rochester Hills, probably 1 to 2 meetings from now. So I'll let him do the presentation. I think he'll talk about where we were kind of 5 years ago to where we are today, as well as what the next few years looks like. I was pleased to see, kind of doing like the look back, the fund balance with the sale of the second building that they had owned next door, that I think was used for like volleyball and basketball and some other sports. With the sale of that building, they were able to pay off the debt on the existing rah-rah building, make significant improvements to that building, replacing the roof, other large capital projects, things that needed to be done, and shore up the fund balance. So I think they're on really solid footing now. So I know, hard decision to sell that, but I think it was the right decision. And the next 3 years, just overall, the budget looks really good. There are still a couple more capital projects that would cut into the fund balance by a small amount, but I think by 2027, they would be contributing funds back to the fund balance. So that was also positive to see. So we will see that update here shortly. And that's all I have on RARA.
Very good, thank you. Next is further public comment. Brian, anything out there? Is Brian out there?
I wonder if they got disconnected earlier when they were.
So I guess we're not going to have public comment from Brian tonight. Okay, on to general miscellaneous, Mr. City Manager.
No, just have the obvious, proud of the team, all hands on deck. This, our second catastrophe on the river, this was a big one. We were on it so fast, and there's so many people that care about that trail because it touches so many communities and so many people that resources came out of the woodwork. From Anthony flying drones so that we'd have, and immediately take that footage to our insurance carrier to tell us how much money we have in that pot, to a private foundation sending their top person out here last Friday and met out there and can throw huge resources. I think we're gonna have enough money. It's an engineering feat. It's, if you go, there's a lot of people sneaking around the barricades, and we're kind of okay with that because we have them back far enough that it's safe, but you can see the destruction. I mean, how that picked that spot to go, no one knows. You can't figure it out. Yeah, water finds its own way, right? So, it's stabilized right now. AEW's we have 3 different ways we're looking at fixing this. Somehow you would sheet pile the north side to create the stability deep down into the water pan and then backfill that to bring the trail up to where it was. They can meet ADA compliance and slope the trail a little bit. We'll see about that. We're talking about a temporary bridge, not a temporary bridge, a modular bridge. They just did a few of them in St. Clair County where helicopter drops in a bridge, sections of a bridge that they can construct, but you have to put helio piers, which is 90 feet down into the pavement, into the wetland to get the pier set to put the bridge on top of it. You can't, there's one way down there, backing down a half a mile from DeQuinter. You can't get across the Stony Creek Bridge with weight limitations on it from the further west. So, and then there is build a superstructure out of Trex probably. That would be just a traditional, look like a wooden bridge. So no matter what, it's a lot of money, engineering feat. So we have Army Corps of Engineers has been called, Fish and Wildlife, Eagle, everybody's been bringing representatives. So Jason, how many times we've been out there? Now, like probably 10 times already with different people, show them the respect because they need to know what they need to know to go to their funding sources. So thank everybody involved from our neighboring communities, sent their representatives, their engineers, everybody's trying to figure this out as fast as possible. There was no good way around it. There is no way around it, so that we posted really good detour routes all around. People have been very patient, and we appreciate that, but it's on the top of our list to figure out a way to do it and then quickly get to the funding sources to make that happen. So it's paramount in our efforts every day to make sure it remains safe. And it's really cool because that's the actual heron rookery that's back there. Jason came up with this idea when we were talking to the funding source from the community foundation that funds massive projects like this in Buffalo, New York, and Metro Detroit. And the idea is turn something this into a win for all of us. So with that section blown out now, you can really see the actual rookery. So possibly if we build some kind of a bridge that we put out an overlook there, like there are on Paint Creek Trail as you're going up, certain spots that you could stop, make it a destination on the Bell River, Iron Bell Trail across Michigan. Let people come in and learn about the rookery, and you really won't bother those birds because it's so far down. But we're going to try to. That was important to some of the funding people saying, let's make this something that's informational and protect the wildlife. And there was 10 feet of water in there. Don't need 10 feet, but the pressure on the backside of that's 200 yards long. It's a massive line. So we're gonna have relief pipes that come through. So when it builds up a certain head, that should take that pressure off. So again, we're on it. As soon as we know a time frame, how fast we can get going, everybody will know.
Councilmember Trent.
How much of the rookery was destroyed? Was there?
No, the rookery's fine because they're all up on deadfall. So not one tree came down, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
So there's 17 nests. I think they're still up there.
Oh,
so.
great, because someone had said there's only 5 left, but that was.
Oh, no, there's a lot, yeah.
That was a rumor.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're there.
Councilmember Sage.
So we've talked about it in goals and objectives about ever considering just paving that piece, our piece, as, so it extends the Macomb Orchard, and we'd get it up to the Rochester Hills boundary.
Yeah.
Is there an estimate of what that would be? I mean, is this a time to even start talking about?
So, exactly. So the funding source foundation folks asked that same question, and he happens to ride the trail a lot. He lives right here. So he's aware of the controversy of runners saying it's too hot running on asphalt, bikers saying it's too dusty on gravel. So there's no good answer, but we're going to get an estimate so we know how much that costs to do. So certainly, if we're this deep into it, we might as well know now, so.
Right.
And then the secondary one, as you know, is by the Swale property. We're working with them to get the permanent easement so that we can angle that off, which would save $300,000 instead of just street piling and making it look terrible. So, 2 failures, pretty weird. It's been a rough year, obviously, with all the flooding. It's, we're trying to come up with solutions for that too. So it's been a challenge, not just here, everywhere, obviously, but we're dealing with the ones that we have.
Councilmember Hauser.
When you say the Suave, meaning reconnect to that straight line versus the meandering along the river there? Okay.
Because we changed that.
We changed it for them.
For them, and then they never did it.
Yeah.
Right.
The river.
Anything further?
The
Mr.
river
Stitt?
remembers.
Madam Clerk?
Early voting starts this Saturday. Hours and location are on the website, and we'll also be sending out a news flash every morning to remind people what the hours are, so.
So Mary, you have one other thing, because you just reminded me. So Priority Waste Haulers have done a pretty good job in our town. I know a lot of towns are struggling right now, and I talked to Mayor Barnett, and they know they're giving it their best, but they have a lot of issues there too in Oakland Township. So they've been really, really good to us and very responsive. We've got names and personal cell phones. If something happens, Jason can call them immediately. We've got a system down now. And so on our end, I know it's not perfect everywhere. It's huge contracts they took over. But just so you know, they're doing a yeoman's job in Rochester at this point. So shout out to them.
Mr. City Manager, or City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember King?
I had 2 things related, kind of. The Kiwanis shelter in the park, I think at the last meeting, we had approved an event, and I just was looking back over the schedule, and I realized it was a daytime event during the week. I think it's for Consumers Energy, possibly for like their employee picnic. I don't know if that conflicts. I think Rah typically tends to use that for their summer camps. I don't know if we gave that any consideration or what the agreement is with Rah for those summer camps.
Yeah, they use.
They use that one.
Used by the tennis courts.
We check all that. So,
Okay,
yeah,
they're,
over there.
okay, that just kind of came up. And then what stemmed it was, there's been some emails going around our neighborhood. Our book club is very active, and there was some concerns about a recent event in the park. You might have heard it.
Yes.
I was home that evening. I don't live right by the park. I'm 2 blocks, but it didn't bother me personally. Some people seemed to be very upset. It, I think, was 2 hours. I don't know if they went outside of.
They didn't, so it was an all-day thing. It was an evangelistical musical event, and we got no complaints at the time of the event. After there's a form, I got 13, I think, exact same emails, so I could tell they're just copy and pasting it. And every single person that complained, we got a hold of, and immediately we had got a hold of the organizers and acknowledged if they want to come back, they'd have to find a way to turn it down a little bit. So nobody objected to the content of the music, et cetera, but that day, nobody called, which was kind of weird. Normally, you call, you go out and tell them to turn it down, but it was after the fact, so we told them, we had a lot of complaints, and they were horrified, because like, how, nobody told us to turn it down during the day?
Right,
But they were very
right.
responsive.
Okay, so they weren't outside of
No,
their
no, no,
hours
no,
or anything
no,
like
no.
that?
It was just
Yeah.
the duration on a Sunday.
Got it.
Mayor Pro Tem Selvey.
Just dancing in the street and sidewalk sales were fantastic. The weather really helped. I think it was probably the biggest crowd I've ever seen for dancing in the streets. It was great. So thanks to everyone, the DDA and DPW, and I saw a lot of police presence, and so a lot of hard work for a lot of fun that was had. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Sage.
Nothing this evening?
Councilmember Jones.
I think we had a cemetery meeting since our last meeting, so we probably I need to make sure they have our calendar. But we'll wait anyway, because what we talked about there, we would like to be on the schedule for the August 26th, and you probably have that covered, to present some idea what they're doing in the cemetery and that park. And then the other thing is just to keep the skate park alive and well. There was a table at Sidewalk Sales. I worked it for a few hours for donations, because above and beyond the approved $500,000, there's other bells and whistles they'd like to get. So it was so energizing working that table. I cannot believe the support in our community. Well, we knew at that council meeting how many people came. So I was even more energized when I was done working my shift on the excitement about that. There's been a soil test. We're waiting to have a meeting, but it is still moving along. Don't anyone think it's not coming. It will be coming at some point, so, yeah.
Great.
Thanks, that's it.
Councilmember Trent.
I don't have anything, no.
Councilmember Hauser.
Nothing this evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I thought Dancing in the Streets was really crowded, really well-run. Bands were good. So I think it's a big success, and I think really a lot of our events downtown are really successful these days, so that's a good thing. So on that note, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stuart, I did
Come
your.
look at your.